Okay.
All right, so we'll get started. So thanks everyone for jumping online. We do appreciate it. I believe it's the last day of school holidays, so maybe young students perhaps want to do other things on the last day of school holidays. But thank you for joining us nonetheless. This is session number 6 with Timeout with the Kings, and we're lucky enough this evening to be joined by Karen Haddad, who's a sports psychologist. Before I introduce Karen, just a kind of reminder that I kind of give to everyone at the beginning of these talks. I'd encourage you to have a notepad out, take as many meaningful notes as you can, and then in order to consolidate that information and knowledge, go talk to someone about it. So whether that's mum and dad at the dinner table, whether that's with a fellow athlete or peer, or even with your coach, especially around this topic. It's definitely one that I would encourage you to go and talk about further. So with the questioning tonight, as usual, I'll have some questions prepared. People have submitted questions, which I've vetted, and I'll ask Karen when that moment comes. But if anyone has any additional questions that they'd like to ask, please submit them in the Q&A function of Zoom. I've changed the settings now, so all the questions are anonymous, so no one can really see who's asked what. And even with the submitted questions, I'll make sure I don't identify who submitted those questions. But without further ado, I'll introduce Karen Haddad, who's a sports psychologist with the New South Wales Institute of Sport and the New South Wales Swifts, university lecturer, Australian Catholic University, ACPE, where we met. And then once upon a time, University of Technology Sydney and the University of Newcastle. The great thing about Karen is she has a breadth of experience in coaching as well, and as an ex-player in basketball. So she's been involved with the City of Sydney Basketball Association. She's been involved in high school basketball, and she's been involved with New South Wales state teams, as well as working with AIS level athletes. So she's very much across basketball in this country and this state. And I think that combination, or that combined with her sports psychology background, will make for a phenomenal talk. So thanks for joining us, Karen.
Thanks, Sean.
So I guess for anyone that may be interested, Karen was my university lecturer, and my first lecturer that I ever had, and really helped me enjoy my tertiary education. To the point where sports psychology ended up being my favorite unit at uni. So I hope everyone will also enjoy this as much as I did. But I guess just for, a bit of a start, to give everyone a bit of context. I know I've given everyone a bit of a brief background, but I think I'd be interested to know, and I'd imagine everyone else would be interested to know, how did you decide on sports psychology or performance psychology, and what type of a journey has it taken you on to date?
I think the one thing that I've loved about basketball, it basically has created this pathway for me, working with athletes and elite coaches. So the major motive that I had as a junior basketball player was obviously to be the best Aussie player, and didn't necessarily get there. And so I then got into education, and then I decided to continue with psychology. And the reason why I became a performance psych was because of all the experiences that I had as an elite athlete, some great, some very damaging. I wanted to give back to athletes some skills that I never had. So that would be the main motive as to why I became in performance psych, and the love of team sports and the love of sport. And to be able to give people strategies that I never had and watch them perform is so exciting. So
awesome. So I guess just to brief everyone, the two main things that we'll try and scratch the surface of today are, I guess, motivation, broadly speaking, and competitive anxiety. So I guess to start with, Karen, this is a very unique situation. We're in the middle of a global pandemic with coronavirus, and athletes are being affected immensely in a variety of different ways. So I guess generally speaking, what have you seen with athletes, I guess, during this time, and I guess now that community sport is started, what are some of the things around motivation that you've seen with athletes coming out of COVID and entering back into community sport?
Yeah, This has been a crazy time. Like nobody has ever planned or expected this to happen. And it was very interesting earlier on in COVID when the lockdown happened, particularly with the elite athletes, um, was the fact that they looked to me for answers, and I actually didn't have the answers yet because I'm still trying to, process and sort of understand what is actually happening. So I guess the main thing that I got from this, and even talking to regional athletes and recreational athletes, is it was okay to feel a bit odd and a bit scared and a bit angry about sport shutting down because nobody ever expected this to happen. So what we're challenged with now is how do I get them ready to return to sport? So it has been interesting. Some people are coming back and they're like gung ho. Some people are coming back and like, I'm not sure I'm there. Like I'm so far off. I've let myself down because I'm not what I was before shutdown happened. And others are like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So it has been quite challenging. And I think if you've had any of those thoughts, they're all completely normal. And just like experiencing an injury or, having a break, we've got off season, you never come back 100% ready to go. So the key message that I want to send out, particularly for you who are starting your sports and training in that, is don't expect to be 100% yet. Like you're going to have a period of time, like a month, of trying to get your rhythm back. Training and doing 1-on-0s isn't the same as playing 5-on-5 or playing with teammates. So don't be too heartbroken or too angry at yourself if you haven't got that, down pat. So the main things that I want to share with you today in terms of strategies is just checking on your motives. Like, why are you actually playing basketball? What are your motives? If they are internal, so things like I'm playing it because I love basketball, I'm doing it because I want to be, improve my skills, be a great shooter, then that's fantastic. Those kind of motives help you with persistence, performance, and satisfaction. So athletes who are doing that and are spending a lot more time driving their sport success and performance and experience with internal drives are getting so much more out of those other than those who are driving themselves with external motives. Like I play it because mum and dad played it. I played it because, my coach needs me. Those athletes aren't going to get great performances all the time. They're not going to be satisfied and they're going to be quite they might not stick at it. So just checking on that. Now, if you do notice that you have more external motives, it's okay. I want you to reevaluate why you're playing your sport. Ask your questions. Why are you playing the sport? Not why are you doing it for others? So I think that's really, really important. And don't be heartbroken or devastated if you've got external motives. It's okay. What I do want you to do is then go, well, why do I want to do it? What's in it for me? What can I get out of this? And at the end of the day, think of the sandpit. You as a kid. Think of you. I remember all the bloody sessions at Sydney Comets. In the basketball stadium at 6 o'clock doing, I don't know what it was called then, ITPs or whatever it was. And I used to wake up. Why am I doing this? Because I want to be a good player. I love it and I hate it, but I want to be a good player. So that's one of the really good messages that I want to send out to you, is just check in on your motives, because you want it to be driven by internal. The other thing that I do want to sort of mention, and this has been really helpful, particularly for the Olympians out there that I've been working with, is develop a growth mindset. Okay, right now, times are difficult. You're returning from having, how many months off did we have? Like 3 months off? Or
Yeah, 3 or 4.
So if you're returning and you don't have a growth mindset, you're actually going to set yourself up to fail. Okay, so in basketball, we're going to experience probably more failure than success. I'm probably going to miss more shots or fail something more and more times until I get to the expert stage. So if you have a growth mindset, then you're going to believe that it's about practice and effort. So practice and effort will make me better at my skills. If I have a fixed mindset, then you're thinking that I either have it or I don't. I'm either a good shooter or I can jump high, but I can't work on it. So what I find with athletes who have a fixed mindset, they tend to have tantrums, they get stuck, they put their heads down straight away. But someone with a growth mindset, the things that coaches, experience with those athletes is really uplifting. They're open to learn. They're okay if they make a mistake. They're like, yep, sweet. What can I learn from this? How do I get better? I think MJ, Michael Jordan's probably the best example of somebody who has failed so many times. I never saw him put his head down. He was like, right, no, but we've got the next game. I'm going to learn from this and I'm going to get better. Excuse the cat in the background. I can see him. They also keep calm when they make mistakes because they look at it as learning experiences, where someone with a fixed mindset, it's the be all and end all. I either fail or I pass here. But a growth mindset goes, yep, I'm going to have a go at this, see how I go, and I'm going to get better and I'm going to put the effort in to be the best I can be. And the most important part is you're coachable. That's what a coach wants, a coachable athlete. So if I'm talking to an athlete and they say I can't, in the coach's mind, they're like, how am I going to work with this athlete? Whereas a growth mindset athlete would say, okay, I haven't got it yet, but I will get it. And that's a very different approach. So in terms of motivation, they're probably the two big ticket items that if you haven't got that stuff, you need that behind you. Get a growth mindset or work on it, and check in on your motives in terms of motivation.
So I guess it's probably fair to say that growth mindset is a skill, mate, perhaps. So if you haven't flexed that muscle for 3 to 4 months, perhaps in an athletic sense, maybe at school, what would be some advice that you would give to a kid? Because I imagine when they go back into the gym for the first few weeks or even play their first game or practice game, there are going to be these feelings of, oh, just maybe I'm not that good, or, oh, God, they're just way better than me. I can't do anything about that. How do you, as an athlete, fix that? I don't think it's as easy as just saying, oh, let's just get a growth mindset.
So the strategies to develop a growth mindset, first and foremost, you must understand what it is. So I've only given you a really brief thing. And I think you guys are doing it in schools these days. Latch on and really learn the difference between a fix and a growth. The second thing that I think is really important is you check in regularly. Every training session, check in. Is this a growth or fixed mindset? And if you are working with others, teach them about it, because then you can call each other up on, hey, that's a fixed mindset there. Because it's all about language. If you listen to someone's language, you can either determine whether they're a fixed or growth mindset. So that's something else you can do. More importantly, the most simple strategy is add yet. I haven't got it yet, but I will get it. Yet is a very, very useful word, and coaches out there, put that in the vocab. When you hear I can't, you change it to you haven't got it yet, but you will get it. First time I learned a layup, I couldn't do a layup, and now I can do a layup. Well, probably can't do it anymore. We can't jump anymore, it hurts. But, power layup. You've got all this stuff up your sleeve. Setting challenges for yourself is important. Change the way you're looking at mistakes. They are learning opportunities. They aren't mistakes. They're going to get you to where you want to get to. Couple of other things: control the controllables. Focus on you and what you control. Forget anything else. Forget your opponent. What you can do is control the strategy you have to beat your opponent. Process. Always focus on process. Forget the outcome. If you stick to how to get the outcome, which is your process, you'll get your outcome. And then lastly, the other strategy that I would give you is, sorry about the plane, but make self-reflection part of your routine. That should be part of your day. Yep, train, blah, 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 reflect. What worked, what didn't, how do I improve? What worked, what didn't, how I improve, all the time, and you keep growing. So they're the things that I would suggest in terms of motivation and developing that growth mindset are important.
So I guess there's also a bunch of other key influences that could potentially assist in the development of a growth mindset. And, I'd say parents and coaches play a significant role, perhaps at different capacities, but nonetheless a significant role. When we talk about language for a parent or a coach, what type of language are we talking about? Is it just, let's just add yet? Is there anything else that we should be conscious of, in general when speaking to athletes or addressing athletes?
Yeah. The two key concepts here: effort, practice. So when you ask questions about how they went, instead of talking about winning or losing, talk about how much effort did you put in? Did you practice enough? Okay, because if we're going to look at getting an athlete to grow, they are the most important elements of growth. So remove away from talking about outcome and focus more on growth. What else could you do? I think remove yourself from controlling language, particularly if we're talking about getting them to drive themselves and be internally motivated. It's probably a big word I probably shouldn't use, but we want to create that autonomous athlete, so that athlete that drives themselves. And the way you do that is empower them. So instead of just going, here's what you're doing, this is how it will be, blah, 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 give them choices and give them rationales. The one thing, Sean, that I find really hard, even working at the national level, when I watch athletes who are robots, and I'm like, that's going to be hard and what I mean by robots is they can do a play really well. They can do a textbook move really well, but in a game situation, they can't read it. So for me, I always talk to coaches about give them rationales, tell them why they are doing this and get them to understand. Why do we push, why do we turn in the backcourt? Why do we push sideline? Build your basketball IQ, because that's going to allow you to be the best basketball player who won't need a coach. And that's what is important about creating that autonomous athlete. They can function on their own. You want to get to a game as a coach and just watch it. So I think that's really important too. So giving them choices and asking them, giving them rationales. Now, athletes, this is really important for you. If you're doing something at training and you don't know why you're doing it, or you do know why you're doing it, have the conversation with your coach. Hey, coach, we're doing this. We're turning to the backcourt because we're kind of trying to waste the, backcourt time. Ask those questions, because you are building your basketball IQ, which means you are going to be a threat and you are going to be attractive to a coach in selection. So yes, and I guess the other thing I want to push as well, connect with your athlete, parents, coaches, with your kids, and that connect, but treat them as humans. And I think that human aspect was really important during COVID. So many athletes freaked out and they just sort of melted and went, who am I? And I just went, well, who are you? What's important to you? Yep, sport's not there, but what about your other aspects of your life? You are never going to be a good water polo player, basketball player, whatever, if you don't have other things going on. Because guess what? When basketball's crappy, your whole life's crappy. But if you've got other things going on, basketball's not so great, but hey, my academia is nailing it. I've got really good social networks and you're just going to be in a better mental health space. So that's really important as well.
Awesome. I mean, and it's probably worth noting as well for everyone that is listening. I mean, there are a large number of strategies that we're covering here, and this will be recorded and everyone will have access to watch this again. So if you've missed anything, please don't fret. It'll all be available tomorrow and indefinitely forever. So I guess transitioning now into competitive anxiety, given that, I know for senior basketball, we resumed our games last Saturday. Junior basketball has about another month if they get there, fingers crossed. And I know it's probably one of the more common things that athletes have to deal with, game day, big tournament, whatever it is. How would you describe what anxiety is? And 2, is it normal? And then 3, what are some basic strategies to manage it?
Yeah. Anxiety is so normal. We all get it. Okay. So anxiety is basically a form of arousal, and you get these unpleasant feelings and symptoms with it. So, I mean, for me, I used to shake. I'd go bright red. My heart rate would, race. Can't think straight. So it is. And I speak to athletes about this all the time. They freak out. Actually, I worked with one athlete, one of my netballers, and she said for the first time, she goes, I experienced this really weird thing. Like before a game, I just freaked out. I couldn't think straight. I was shaking, and I just went, oh, you experienced a bit of anxiety. She's like, what's anxiety? I've never known it. And this athlete was 20 and had never experienced it before. So What I do want to say is that it's okay not to feel great. There are many games that you've probably already played where you were really nervous, where you felt crappy, but you still pulled it off. So I want you to remember those games. When you are experiencing those nerves and anxiety before a match, it just means you care about it. It's a really good thing to have, because if you don't have it, why are you there? It's when it ends up with, your head in a bin and you're vomiting, that's when it becomes too much. And that just means you need to develop some coping strategies. So I'm going to talk you through some, okay? Remember, control what you can control. So there's no point if I was a sprinter going up to a line, looking across and go, oh, that person's got 6 foot, that person's 6 foot and got such longer legs than me. Guess what that's going to do? Send me into a spiral of, whatever. Same as when you're warming up in basketball and you look down and the opposition has a great warm up and they look so great. And then you're like, oh my God, they've already got a psychological advantage over you. Complete waste of your time. Why are you even tapping into that? I used to love doing that. And then you get on the court and they're like, oh, they're not that good. So that's important too. So take control of the actions that you can. And again, think about process. Process. The process will give you your outcome. Do not waste time thinking about whether you're going to win or lose. Think about the job that you need to do in your position, on the court, in your team role. That's what should be the focus. I also think when you remember that you're human, that you will make mistakes, things are easier. So expect to miss a shot, expect to throw the ball away, expect to be beat on defense. What you don't want to do is repeat it. So learn from it. So just like the growth mindset, what do I need to do next time so that doesn't happen? Put it in place. So yeah, it's not focusing on how bad I look in front of others. What does my coach think? It should be, how do I fix it? Now, if you don't know how to fix it, this goes back to your basketball IQ. You need to be going, hey, coach, what do I have to do here? Shot's not going in. What's happening? So sometimes I was a 3-point shooter. That's, sometimes I'm like, I'm feeling good. Why isn't it going in? And I'd have to go to the coach and go, did you see something in that? And the coach would go, oh, you did bend your knees or something I can pick up. So that's really important as well. Take care of yourselves. Have a routine in place. Each time I travel with the team, can I say traveling with teams is very exhausting as a sports psych. So I have a self-care routine. Like I have a routine where I FaceTime my German Shepherd. Now I have a cat, so I'm sure he'll get in on there. I talk to my partner. I go for a walk. I exercise, and I spend time away from the team and the sport, because otherwise I'm going to go crazy. When I'm at home, every afternoon and morning, I go for a dog walk, and I have to practice mindfulness. I'm not allowed to take my phone with me, no work, no nothing. I switch off and I connect with either my family or my animals, because it reminds me that I'm human and I'm really important. And it removes all the other stress of the day that happens. And mindfulness is really important, guys. Can I say, if you are very good at mindfulness, in a game, when you need that free throw to win a game and you have those skills, it's going to come in place and it's going to actually really complement your performance, because it will allow you to relax, concentrate, and be in the present moment. Headspace and Smiling Minds are 2 great apps that have some exercises. We practice it here. We put it on and we go for gold. I'm not very good at it. I'm still going to learn, because I'm always what to do, what I'm going to do next, but I'm still practicing it as well. But being in the moment on a walk even. So that's how I practice it. I look at the trees, I look at my dog, I look at the other, that's a form of mindfulness. And the last tip I'll give you on this one is track your successes. We don't record our highlights. I found out today in another thing I was listening to, it takes us 12 seconds to remember that, but I guarantee you, and for it to stick in your brain, I guarantee you can remember what your mistakes are. So if you have highlights, I want you grabbing them. Put a highlight reel together. Here's all the stuff, when I'm down and out as an athlete, you can't think of good things. But if you have a highlight reel that shows you all those awesome moves, the times that you made those free throws, the times you stopped a player, then when you're in the lowest moments, you're going to be able to go, oh yeah, actually I am good. I'm being hard on myself here. So that's really, really important. And that's been really helpful for a lot of the Olympians that are going in really stressed to have that in place.
Do you think, so from a parent or a coach's perspective, um, it's is it perhaps as simple as just saying, hey, I sat on this webinar on Monday night and there was a performance psychologist named Karen Haddad and she had this list of things. Here, go do those things. Is it as simple as that, or is there more to it if you're a coach or a parent and you're trying to influence these things?
I think, most of the times coaches freak out. So it is, oh, Karen, this person has mental health, or Karen, this person's anxious. I'm not. What I think is important, the message I want to send to the coaches is, remember, it's normal. Anxiety is normal. We all experience it. Some will experience it more than others. Some will need more help than others with it. But what I would recommend is that you just sit and listen to them. You can't solve their problems. You're not experts in the field. So don't feel that you need to solve their problems. Sometimes they just need to share it and it becomes so much lighter. What I would recommend would be refer them. Go, right, well, here's some things that you could do if they can't think of any. Go into a GP. Getting a mental health referral network is great, or you can get referred to a psychologist. That's covered through Medicare. So there's some stuff that you can do, but don't ever try and solve it, because sometimes, I get stuck and I'm an expert in it. So, and I then refer. So I guess the point there is just sit and listen to them, listen to what they're experiencing, and allow you to understand the human being that's in front of you. In terms of creating that autonomous athlete, try and get them to think of a plan of how they can help themselves. Okay, well, you're experiencing, this anxiety. What are some things that you can do so that it's not so heavy? And they might say, well, I could probably go speak to somebody. Great, you've done your job. That's all you need to do as a coach and parent.
Awesome. All right, so we'll get stuck into some of these questions that have been submitted prior. So the first one, mental toughness. What is it and how do I get it?
Mental toughness is an interesting word. We don't really use that anymore, which it is, as a sports psych, I've always been told don't use that term. But I guess if you look at what mental toughness is in terms of, I guess, an athlete and how you would see it would be, well, here are all the psych things that I need to be ticking, and these need to be aligned for me to perform well. So I think mental toughness would be, I'm able to do these things under pressure. So yes, it's, most coaches have got, Karen, can you come in and work on mental toughness? And I'll be like, what do you mean by mental toughness? It could be, my team's not getting along. This athlete has confidence issues. So what I would say is focus on developing your psych skills. So, and it could be anything, but it's what's needed for the individual or the team.
Okay. How do I deal with feeling intimidated by other players?
Interesting. Remember, if we go back to what I spoke about, you've got to control the controllables. So think about your process. What can you do to be effective against that opponent? So if I'm feeling intimidated, are we talking about the opposition or our own team?
Oh, it doesn't say, but I would assume, okay. Well, let's talk about both. Okay. I think that's pretty interesting to talk about.
So in terms of the opposition, basketball's a game of strategy. Have a look at them. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What's my strategy to beat the person? Okay, simple as that. That will get you thinking about your process and will remove you from, oh my God, they're so good, or they're big, I'm not sure if I can cope, to, well, I'm going to put a strategy in place, put my growth mindset hat on and have a go. And if I get it, I get it. And if I don't, I'm going to tweak it again. I'm going to tweak it until I get that strategy. If you have athletes on your team that is intimidating you, it depends on, I think for me, I'd like to talk to an individual about this, because it will be dependent on the dynamics of the group, but the conversation has to be had. Whether you talk to your captain of your team, whether you talk to your coach, whether you can directly talk to the person. But the thing that I work with athletes on is to teach them to say, when you do this, so talk about behaviors of the person, you make me feel like this. You make me feel intimidated. What's important about that approach is the person can't correct how you feel. So, and all you're doing is, hey, awareness, when you push me after a shot, you make me feel intimidated. They can't correct that. And if they try and justify it, no, I'm just letting you know how you make me feel. And I know, and in that moment, the athlete, you're thinking, oh, they don't get it. I guarantee you they'll walk away and think about it. And
So
hopefully make adjustments.
if it's something to do with like their overall ability, like they're a really talented player, what would you say then if that's what was intimidating? Not necessarily how they act or their behavior. It's more just their overall ability. They're a good basketball player.
Use them as a resource. How exciting. If you've got someone that good, just like Pippen did with Jordan, use them as a resource. Take advantage of them. Learn stuff, talk to them. How do you do that? Why did you do that? Develop your basketball IQ. I think that would be exciting to have somebody where you go, oh, I'm going to lap this up. I'm going to learn as much as I can from this person. Instead of looking at them as something superior, look at them as a resource. You're going to help me get where I need to get to.
I mean, I guess that goes back to that whole growth versus fixed mindset thing, right? Use them as a resource to get better, or I'm fixed, I can't get better. This person's always going to be better than me.
Yeah.
So next question, how do I keep my head in the game after something unfair happens on the court? Because sometimes I tend to start saying negative things in my head and I eventually lose all control.
Okay. So if you do experience this, and hey, I've done it many times on the basketball court, the key part on that is you're focused on the things you can't control and you are wasting your energy. So a referee will never change a call, will they? So if you're going to get caught up in that moment, you're going to let your team down and you're going to lose your player. So, for example, I missed a shot and I didn't get the foul and I'm having a whinge about it. They're going back on a fast break and I'm looking at the referee and I've let my whole team down because they now scored a layup because they've got 5 on 4. So it is more so, well, what can I control? You know what I can control? I'm going to get the ball back. Where's my attack? I'm doing too much netball lately. I keep saying attack. Where's my offensive player? I'm going to get taken out. I'm going to get the ball back. So control the controllables on that. I think it's really important you watch yourself. If you are an emotional player, I was quite emotional too. Look at it on video. You will be surprised with how mortified you feel when you see it. And once you see it, it might help you change to make the adjustments. But again, don't beat yourself up if you are emotional. Just spend less and less time being caught in that moment where you're having a whinge.
Okay. Athletes with anger management issues. What are some strategies that sports psychologists tend to, I guess, suggest with these types of athletes?
Oh, I've just mentioned one. The first thing I do is film them and show them. Half the time you are mortified. I was mortified when I saw myself perform once. I'm like, oh my God, I look like a big sook on the court. So that's really important. I'd also probably try and tap into why are they so angry? And what you'll find is they've got a fixed mindset. So for me, it's about, well, hey, you can have that, but you won't make it. You won't make it. Coaches are going to go too hard basket, get out. So for me, it'd be working on your growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, you won't be having dummy spits. So that's something else that you need to check in. So sort of check in. Oh, what am I thinking right now? Oh, yeah, that's growth. That's not a growth mindset, and switch it. If you don't, you're just not going to get to the level that you can get to. It's lots of anger management and intimidating behaviors.
So with that one, I remember speaking to a colleague who was working with an assistant coach and they were coaching a state team. And there was select group of athletes who would always become flustered whenever they had to go to the foul line. And she, I don't know the backstory of it, but she installed some sort of a cue. So she would click her fingers and that cued something for said athlete on the foul line, whether that was to ask some sort of a question or take them back or take them to a happy place or somewhere where they're calm. Are there other examples of things like that that potentially coaches could use as strategies with athletes or said athletes?
The shepherd's just come back. Hey, how'd you go? This is Nala, everybody. 1 second, Sean. 1 second.
No, you're all good.
So can you just close that door? Yeah, so we've all got different types of routines. We are moving away from that thought-stopping behaviour and that because it doesn't necessarily work. Because if you think about something, can you please grab her? Thank you. So when you used to do thought stopping, it creeped back in. So these days we're sort of focused on just accept the fact that you can have good and bad thoughts, but you don't have to run with it. So if I get a bad thought, Karen, you're a bad shooter, I don't have to sit with it. I can just let it pass. So mindfulness is probably the key strategy on that one. We all have pre-performance routines. I still have one. I still do 2 bounces, bend, elbow, flick. That's my, So your pre-performance routines should involve a breath to center, something, and a cue word maybe to get you in the moment. So it could be Zen, whatever it is that gets you in the right mood to shoot. You just be creative with that stuff. Right? You will work out what works for you, and I think over time it will change as well.
So I think this question may link into your answer that you've just given. As a coach, how can we help a player who overthinks, and how can we prevent developing players who overthink?
I would question their mindsets on that one. If the overthinking is negative, then yeah, question that mindset. They definitely need to be in the moment. So those mindfulness strategies are really, really important for those athletes. And actually getting them to talk you through, like I, as a coach, listen to, can you tell me about that? Or I'm noticing that your body language is really negative right now. Tell me what you're thinking. Find out what they're actually thinking. So whether it is about fixed versus growth mindset, or maybe it's the fact that they're just stuck in a rut. And what you'll find is in those high pressure situations, when we get stuck, we stay there for quite some time because we can't think of the strategies to move across. And that is as simple as stick to your process, have fun, enjoy yourself. Life is, life is too short. Those humanistic stuff bring us back. So as a coach or a teammate, that's really important. Hey, connect with them as humans. I'm here for you. What do you need? And there are always going to be those people who are overthinkers, but they will need to develop some strategies that helps them get that stuff out and let it pass. We're not going to block it, but we're going to let it pass. I would say I experienced a fair bit of anxiety. I went for a job recently, I went for my job recently because I had to, because it was a government job. And I spent 48 hours stressed, worried, they don't want me, this is not fair. And it wasn't until one of my colleagues said, move towards your goals, Karen. What are you doing? You're stuck in a place that you don't need to be stuck in. And as soon as my colleague said that, which is pretty much what I work with athletes on, I just went, oh my God. So I went to, right, I'm going to practice my interview techniques in front of the mirror. I'm going to practice with friends. Here's my written stuff. And nailed it, absolutely nailed it. But I would have appreciated getting 48 hours back of windy. So ACT is it's called acceptance commitment therapy. I absolutely love it. It does intertwine with mindfulness and it teaches really nice strategies. It's a little bit truer in that it understands the human better, in that you're not going to be able to block thoughts, but we can definitely help them move past quicker.
So why is that? Why do you not want to block something? You'd rather let it pass. What is the difference between the two?
So blocking it means you haven't processed it and it'll come back.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
if I sort of sit with it and go, yep, I hear it. Yep, that's normal. I'm going to have good and bad thoughts and they're all going to float past. It's a bit different to go, no, stop, because the more you try and stop it, the harder it keeps coming at you.
So when it is going by, whatever that thought is there any sort of self-talk that's happening in your mind to help it pass?
Yeah, the key about that is do not put judgments on these thoughts. Don't run with any of them. Just let them go. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have thoughts. Some are going to help you too. You might want to jump on some. But the ones that kind of just sort of go, oh, you're a terrible shooter, Karen. Well, that's not necessarily true. You know, facts are, my stats say all this other stuff. So why am I going to jump on board with that? So, yeah, it is about not making judgments and just go, yep, I'm playing a game and yep, I'm going to get negative and positive thoughts, but I don't have to let that affect my game.
Awesome. So this one has been submitted on the chat function. I freeze when I go to shoot, even though I can probably make the shot. I always pass the ball because I am so worried about missing the shot in a real game. What can I do?
If your role is to shoot, like, I don't know, regardless whether it is or not, I guess the thing I say to basketballers, which is not really sports hype, but if you don't shoot, you're letting your team down. So if you have the right shot and your teammates know that you have a right, and your coach knows you've got the right shot, you actually have to take it. Now, the more that you refrain from it, the bigger the anxiety gets with it. So I suggest that when you catch the ball, you square up, you've got to look for yourself first and you take the shot. The more you take the shot, the more practice, the effort you put in, the more confident you're going to be. The more you withdraw from it, the bigger that elephant gets in the room that, oh my God, what do I think if I'm going to miss my shot? I'll forget it. I'm going to kick it on. So two things, you'll let your team down if you don't take the shot. And secondly, shoot the shot, build your confidence.
And I guess it's probably worth mentioning as well, if you're unsure whether you should be taking that shot or not, or you hesitate, I guess a conversation goes a long way, right? Just ask the coach, is that a good shot for me? Should I not?
And I mean, I coach youth league women, I don't know what else, state and all that stuff. I would never discourage someone from shooting. So, it's really important, and check in with the coach. Coach, was that the right shot? Yeah, it was. Or, yeah, no, it wasn't. Just pass the ball one, but this is the right shot then, or whatever. But yeah, having those conversations and building your IQ, basketball IQ, is really, really powerful tool to have as a basketballer.
And I guess we'll probably end on this. Is there with S&C, people say, oh, well, when they're 14 or 15, that's when they should be considering strength and conditioning or lifting weight or whatever it is. It's an old adage. What about with sports psychology? Is it, only really need to start taking it serious at the age of 15? Or is it more a matter of, no, well, if you need it, go get it?
So when you look at the elite level, the only thing that differs them is the psych. They're all matched physically, unless you were the dream team. But you know what I mean? Like, you generally are matched physically. The only thing that's different is this. So what I find, and I appreciate your question, let's teach you as young as you can. So when you get to the Australian team or the representative team, wherever you're going with your sport, you have the skills already. That you don't get hit in the face with all this thing and I can't cope. So the younger the better. I think it should be part of every sports program. I think kids should be learning they are great life skills. It's not just about sport. It's about being a high-functioning human, which can go across. So I wouldn't put an age limit. I've worked with 9-year-old twins, little tennis players, up all the way through to 36 in terms of sport. So I wouldn't put an age limit on it. I wouldn't put somebody into the performance psych domain because they have problems. I'd put them in there anyway so they develop their skills, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it for me. Before I close this, is there anything that you'd like to close with? Is there any kind of final message that you want to put out there to anyone that's listening, or?
Um, I hope you all enjoy your sport. I think sport is such a
Mm,
unique thing that people who aren't involved in it will miss out on some really important skills.
mm.
I mean, I learned leadership, I learned sports like, so embrace it, take it for what it is, have some fun with it, and good luck.
Awesome. Karen, that was unbelievable. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sean.
I mean, the fact that you've kind of come on at 5:30 p.m. till 6 on a Monday night, I'm sure there's lots of other things that you'd rather be doing. So, thank you very much, and a big thank you to everyone that's kind of jumped on tonight and taken notes and listened eagerly. Really appreciate it. Like I said, I'll make this available tomorrow. I've just got to upload it online to YouTube, and then we'll kind of go from there. Our next talk will be next Monday with Toby Banfield, who's the head of performance for the Sydney Kings. And the theme will be the body, so probably more the physical side of it. Once again, thank you everyone for jumping on. And Karen, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure.
You are more than welcome. Thanks, guys.
Good. See ya.
Take care.